Way back in July, I made a short video going over my Raven Knight army, in which I talked briefly about my future plans for it. Today I'm going to be doing a lot of the things that I mentioned in that video, like adding in some more regular Raven Knights, creating a heavy cavalry unit, and making a few custom units of crossbowmen with the Viking torsos from last year. Additionally, I'm also going to show off my MOCs that I created for the Ravens, like my siege engine and a never-before-seen landscape that I made a few months ago for a mock contest. For those of you that aren't aware of the gorgeous Raven Knight faction, let me fill you in real quick. The Tournament Knight is a collectible minifigure series that came out in Series 20. It came with a bright light orange, pearl dark gray, black, and dark red color scheme that really pops compared to the other factions and Knight CMFs that we had gotten previously. It also gave us this fantastic sword mold for the first time and has since been seen in a ton of other sets like the Medieval Blacksmith. And finally, we got this lovely Raven sigil print on a shield with dark red accents. Now, this minifigure doesn't have any official lore or bio like some of the older CMFs have, and it isn't a part of any official faction, but the LEGO Castle community and the many talented mock artists in it have been using this figure as a faction since its release in 2020, being dubbed the Black Ravens or sometimes the Black Crows by the community, similar to how the 2016 Frightening Knight has been adopted by the community as the Bear Knights. Now, the sad truth about the Tournament Knight is that it came out during the dreaded year of 2020, so you had less people going out to shops and filling up CMF bags to find specific minifigures. Now, I'm sure there are some freaks out there watching that did go out and hunt for the Ravens, but I am sadly not one of you. I took a small break from LEGO during that time and missed out on finding these guys in person, so I had to turn to the aftermarket. Back when I was buying my Raven Knights, I was paying about $14 to $18 per fig, which was pretty expensive during that time. Well, if you're in North America now and want to buy them, you're gonna have to spend around $25 to $40 per minifigure, which in my opinion is just ridiculous. I can't make it any more clear. I do not recommend anyone try and army build these guys at their current price. However, I have a pretty great alternative to the original fig that I think you all will love, and I'll show that a little later in the video. Now that you're a little more familiar with the Ravens, I think it's time we get into the meat of the video, my Raven Knight army. First off, we have the King of the Raven Knights. This was my first Tournament Knight minifigure that I ever bought, so I think it makes sense that he's the king of all the Ravens. Sometime in the future, when I get the Merrick minifigure from the T6 shuttle, I will use that helmet as the King's battle helmet, and I will also be giving him the hair/crown mold in reddish brown. I hope LEGO recolors that piece and the beard in dark tan, because that would work so much better for this face print. Next up, we have the Queen that you will all recognize as my profile picture. Sadly, I don't have the body that I want to use for her yet, so she's just a decapitated head. The one I plan on using is a torso from a Ninjago minifigure. I think it works really well for a Raven Queen, but I'm still on the hunt for a pair of legs to match it though. I'll probably just end up going with some regular pearl dark gray legs. This is the King's brother, a loyal knight of the Raven Kingdom. I absolutely adore this face print from LEGO Kingdoms. It just has so much personality and expressiveness to it that most minifigure heads just don't have. And here is my commander of the infantry. He sports the Urkai sword that is actually still available on Pick-a-Brick and has the same armor and cape style as the other high-ranking Ravens. Now we will meet the siege engineer. This was originally just another one of my more customized Ravens, but because of this incredibly detailed and helpful comment that I got on my last Raven army video, I decided to turn him into a siege engineer. I'm undecided if I should change his torso and legs to something else to further drive home the point that he is the leader of the siege works, but there's not a ton of bright light orange torsos out there to choose from, so I'm not sure. Next, we have the camel riding leader of my cavalry. This face print and hair combo to me just has so much personality, and I think it works great for a fearless cavalry leader. You'll notice that he has a more generic torso and legs. I did that so I could free up those parts for my regular knights. I also want to mention the elephant in the room, or more accurately, the camel in the room. If you're unaware, my Raven Knights are inspired by a somewhat amalgamation of Norse, Viking, and Iberian Muslims. So I take some elements from pop culture Vikings and a lot of the attire and aesthetics from medieval Muslim people. I think it's a lot of fun to take and mash together stuff from real life and other pieces of fiction into my medieval LEGO world. So I hope that makes the camel make a little bit more sense as a mount for this army. On that same note, I have been eyeing up some of these dark red turbans for some of my light infantry, but they are kind of a pain to come by, to be honest. Here we have two Raven Knight champions who have risen through the ranks and are recognized as some of the top knights in the Raven court. One uses the backprint from Fennec Shand and the legs from a Knight of Ren. The other has the legs from Boba Fett and uses some heavy pearl dark gray armor. Next up is the siege engineer's squire, who is also acting as the leader of the heavy crossbowmen. This crossbow holding technique I actually learned from Sobek Bricks over on Instagram and YouTube. It's a really great technique that I didn't even know was possible, and I think Sobek was the first person I ever saw use it. He has some really great custom castle figs and a series of impressive looking Raven Knights that I think you all will love, so give him a follow after this video. I'll have it linked below. And the last of the quote-unquote important characters are the two Kingsguard Knights who travel with the royal family wherever they might go. I just can't get over how much I love how this pearl dark gray armor looks for the Raven Knights. If only we had some more torso and leg options for even more custom Ravens. We can now move on into the bulk of my forces, the regular Knights. I have 6 regular Raven Knights all custom customized with spiked shoulder armor that just gives them that little extra something. Even though I would lose a ton of money if LEGO did this, I really do hope that they bring the Raven torso and legs back through Build a Minifigure just like they did with the Bear Knight. I doubt it will happen, but man, it would be awesome if these guys are more readily available to castle fans that want them. Next, we have my 4 spearmen that each have spears, shields, and a nasal helm, except for the one flag bearer who has a black turban. Again, I would love to get some of the dark red turbans in the new mold, but I just haven't bitten that bullet yet. The other good thing that would come from swapping to turbans is I wouldn't have to pay fairly pricey nasal helms in Pearl Dark Grey. Kitting out the Ravens is not a cheap venture. I'd like to now show you my new and improved heavy crossbowmen. Fully kitted out with the technique from Sobek bricks, and with newly constructed Pavis shields, I have also given each of them a pair of dark red gloves to match the other Ravens in my army. You'll also notice that they each have a cape from Capes for Minifigs. These are the Mando ones in bright light orange. The color match isn't exactly perfect to LEGO's own, but they've grown on me quite a bit since I first got them. This Viking torso honestly can work for customs of any faction, and I'm glad it'll be around for at least another year on Pick-a-Brick. I'm also using the crossbow in Pearl Dark Grey to represent a heavy crossbow, while my light crossbowmen will be using the normal reddish brown ones. I think that distinction kind of helps out a bit. As of right now, I only have 2 of them with kettle helms, but that will change eventually. The kettle helm, like the nasal one, is hard to come by in Pearl Dark Grey, and it gets pretty expensive. They all carry black quivers, which I think really ties the whole custom together. If you're wanting to army build Ravens, I think you should really consider starting with this as a base with the Viking torso and dark red hands, with a simple bright light orange cape. It's a really great starting point, and it's a whole lot cheaper than the original CMF. Next, let's take a look at my light crossbowmen and my 2 light bowmen. These guys are using the Viking torso that is soon retiring off of Pick-a-Brick in a month. So if you're interested in getting any of these, you're probably already too late, but you can give it a shot. These guys you'll notice have significantly less armor than the heavy ones and don't even have helmets. I do plan on transitioning all of these guys into the black hood after I get my heavy crossbowmen into kettle helms. In addition to that, I want them to all be wearing dark red gloves, but I have already torn off all of the dark red hands off of just about every minifigure in my collection. If you're curious as to why I'm using basically all crossbowmen and no regular bowmen, that's just because I think it's cool, and honestly I just think crossbows suit them really well. And now, my long-awaited 7 heavy cavalry. These 7 figures cost me just about the same price as 1 Tournament Night CMF. Now, are these guys really heavy cav without any horse armor? No, not really. But Brick Sticker Shop has just released a new cloth barding for the Tourney Night, so who knows, these horses might be dressed correctly soon enough. Now, I have made these guys with plain torsos and legs to save on the costs, since the print will be covered by a breastplate. The way to really sell these being Raven Knights is by giving them the Pearl Dark Grey arms and dark red hands. From the side, it's impossible to tell that these guys are using plain torsos. As for the armor, I wanted them to have a unique helmet that isn't seen in a lot of cavalry or even any LEGO armies in general. So I gave them these open-faced helmets in Pearl Dark Grey from Nexo Knights of all things. Nexo Knights can actually be useful for castle customs. People just kind of sleep on them a little too much in my opinion. Now these guys are obviously lacking weapons of any kind, and that's simply because I don't know what I should give them. Simple as that. I do want to get the Ovoid Raven Shield stickers from Brick Sticker Shop, but I'm yet to place an order. If you guys have any weapon recommendations, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments below. I'm leaning towards a long mace or club type weapon, but my mind could be swayed by any cool ideas you might have. Also, LEGO, please put the white and black horses back on Pick-a-Brick, and while you're at it, put a dark tan one on there as well. Thank you. Alright, let's now take a look at a few of the MOCs that I've made for my Ravens. This is a MOC that some of you might recognize as my siege tower that I made 4 or so months ago. I still really love this MOC and I haven't taken it apart yet. It is unchanged since you last saw it, as I'm still really happy with how it looks. I might make an updated one at a larger scale, but I have no plans to disassemble this one. If you haven't seen this MOC before, I'll give you a quick little tour of it. It has a lowerable bridge for any wall attacks and has a shooting gallery at the top for any Raven crossbowmen. It also has an interior with a weapon rack at the bottom layer and a ladder system so that it's compatible with minifigures. I really like to include playability and interiors in all of my MOCs. I think it just gives it that extra oomph that some MOCs don't have. Now let's take a look at a never before seen MOC on this channel that I was originally going to dedicate a whole video to, but I ended up scrapping it for a few different reasons. This is the Ravens March to War. The scene was made for a MOC contest in the LEGO Castle Discord that I'll link below. The prompt was to create a playable battle scene, so I made a scene of Ravens marching off to battle. In the MOC, they pass by an orc sheep herder and his farmland, depicted by a small fence made with droid arms and brown bars. Not a unique technique by any means, but it is an effective one. I made the tree of the MOC first because I had a bunch of these lavender leaf pieces that I really wanted to use. I decided that a white birch style tree would look really cool with them. The tree is made up of a ton of clips and bars to get a more natural looking branch system. I think that the white and lavender tree colors really pop with the dark tan and olive green terrain that it sits atop. The base of the tree is a olive green terrain that I have placed on some jumper plates to get a slight off angle on the rest of the build. For me, the real jewel of this MOC is the orc herder and his sheep cautiously looking on as the ravens march off. I'm definitely going to be tearing this MOC down, unfortunately, after this video, because I think I can improve on this one a lot, as I did this build a few months ago now, and I'm not as happy with it as I was when I first built it. Alright, now I want to talk a little bit about the minifigure head discussion. I'm still undecided if I want to swap from yellow to realistic. On one hand, the yellow ones are more affordable and a lot easier to come by in a larger range of expressions, but on the other, the realistic ones allow for you to create different groups of people in your world with different skin tones depending on where they're from in the world. Now, I can see people not wanting that realism, but for me, I think it gives your world a little bit more extra life, especially if you're going with a more realistic color palette in your MOCs. Don't get me wrong, the yellow heads look great and will fit in with most styles, but for the MOC style that I'm aspiring towards, I think realistic heads will be the better option for me. But again, I'm undecided because I have so many great yellow heads that I don't want to waste. Plus, getting skin tone heads is a bit of a pain since they aren't easily available on PAB. So what are my future plans for my Raven army? I for sure want to make the Raven's Watch Fortress from my LEGO lore video. The only thing holding me back from starting that is me wanting to complete a Black Falcon castle first to get my castle building skills up a bit before I attempt one for my favorite faction. Again, I want to order some ovoid shields from Brick Sticker Shop and maybe try out their Raven bardings, but I haven't decided yet. I also want to get the Ninjago torso, obviously for my Raven Queen, and then also completing my Raven King is another thing that I want to get done, but the price of the King CMF is making me put it off as of right now. Finishing off my heavy and light crossbowmen is a core priority for the army right now, because I think they're honestly my new favorite part of it. And finally, I'm testing out the idea of making an orc unit of the Raven army. I'm toying with the idea of making some custom Orc and Raven Alliance sets, like an Orc and Raven battle pack and some other small $20 to $50 style sets, like a siege pack or a small tower build. I'm really working with a lot of different ideas right now. I just really love how the orcs look in Raven armor. The olive green color of their skin and the bright light orange honestly look really good together. The only problem is I need to grab a few more orcs before I make any of that. I don't want to rob my original orc army too much for the Ravens. Let me know if you have any ideas for the army, because many of the things in this video came from the lovely people that left comments on the previous army video. Thank you to all the people that commented and those on screen now that gave me a ton of awesome ideas and also had some really great historical insights that I would have not known otherwise. Thank you for watching.